Those of you who are clinicians and particularly in therapists, I very much encourage you to stay to see two individuals at the end of their life from the Johns Hopkins research. It's really important. So across millions of households in America, in 1957, the Life magazine was delivered with a very good psilocybin mushroom field guide. And this is something that's interesting to me. Here's Demeter giving Persephone a mushroom, présente. This is how you give a sacrament. You don't go, here, take this. You go, pay attention. Look at me. This is what I'm giving you. Do you understand? This is important. That's a very, very common gesture that I've seen over and over again. Well, Maria Sabina did something similar, giving it to R. Gordon Wasson here. And then my brother John, is giving me Psilocybin semilanciata. And I told him about this. Présente, you need to give it with respect. So my brother John was a very big and important person in my life. He went to Yale on break. He went down to Mexico and Colombia. He had an extraordinary interest in psychoactive substances. I got really excited because of him and started getting into mushrooms. And so John came back with this book. And John said, never show this photograph in public. Sorry, John. And he came back with a book by Charles Tart, which one of the speakers referred to yesterday about blew my mind. And, oh, my God, Charles Tart's up there again. And Altered States of Consciousness. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My best friend, Ryan Snyder, he's my sidekick. We hang together all the time. I'm reading this book. Ryan's interested in what I'm interested in, so he wants to borrow the book. I said, listen, John's going back to Yale in 2 weeks. I have to give it back to him before he goes back to class, so give the book back to me. So Ryan borrowed the book, and a few days later, Ryan, John's going back. He's asking about the book. Please give it back to me. And Ryan's hesitating and hemming and hawing. And I say a few days later, and now John's really pressuring me. And I'm going, Ryan, where's my friggin' book? My brother's friggin' book. And Ryan sheepishly looked at me and said, Paul, I can't give it back to you. And I said, why? And he says, my dad discovered it and burned it. I said, your dad burned my brother's book? And I was shocked, and I was terrified to tell my older brother, and I told him he was not happy, and he was really unhappy with me. And I thought, I'm going to make this into something good. If this book and its subject was so disturbing to Ryan Snyder's father, then I think I found a subject field of interest that I want to explore. So now John, went to Yale, went to the University of Washington neurophysiology school. He became very well known as a photographer when he chose that as his career. So I was always trying to impress my brother John. I'm the youngest kid in the family. And we grew up with a big laboratory in the basement in Columbia, Ohio. And we had the Intrepid aircraft carrier radio because my dad served on that aircraft carrier. We had that in the basement. So I listened to coded message. But John was a serious scientist. He had rows and rows of chemicals and whatnot. And so I would take John, and John and I tripped a lot together. So it was really great. A family that trips together stays together. It was great bonding. But John was always like, being the alpha brother. Paul, not good enough. So I got vetted and awarded by the AAAS, the American Academy of Advancement of Science, that produces Science magazine, as the first invention ambassador of AAAS. So a group of 7 of us, including the founder of digital photography. And so I got this award. I had to go through a gauntlet of interviews and all this stuff. And they want messengers who can message science to the public, who are inventors, who have patents, who are inventing things. So I got chosen. So I got my award letter. I was really excited. I got, damn it, brother, I can show you now. I got an award, from AAAS. And so I was real excited. I called my brother John several times on a Friday night, and he didn't answer. And that was the day he died. He never answered the phone. So because of John's encouragement and criticism and mentorship, I've chosen this career. So other people who've influenced me a lot, Dr. Michael Bugh on the left, Alexander Smith holding the big mushrooms there, then Kit Skates down below, and Daniel Stuntz. They all passed on. They were all what we call politically conservative, which is really extraordinary because I showed up at the Evergreen State College and started studying under Michael Bugh and then met these other giants in the field of mycology. This is what I look like. Your suspicions are now confirmed. By the way, guys, I was the first guy to go through puberty in my high school, for my age group. Anyhow, that's why I have so much hair when I'm 19 years of age. So we got a Drug Enforcement Administration license. Michael Bugh did, and that umbrellaed us. And then very strange, Jonathan Ott, Jeremy Bigwood, and myself all went and studied under Michael Bugh. And between the three of us, I think we have 14 or 15 books on psychoactive plants and mushrooms between us. So really, really nerdy professor, fun, really great professor. Love him still. But he got the DEA license. And so Jeremy and I, the guy in the middle, and myself, we were umbrellaed with a Drug Enforcement Administration license. And I thought everybody was a DEA agent. So I'm a solitary kind of guy anyhow. But anyone came up to me, I thought, you're an agent. I can tell, And so I got tempted and bribed all these sorts of times, and I always turned everybody down. So I never got in trouble. But it's really extraordinary. And then at the same time, Terence McKenna, Gary Menzer, Stephen Pollack, and Andy Weil. This is all in the 1970s. Those of you who are interested, please pick up Harper's Magazine and read the story on Stephen Pollack. He was a physician in San Antonio, Texas. I was speaking to him on the phone when he was murdered with a .357 Magnum. Horrible story. I called up several times later. The police answered the phone. The policeman who answered the phone was the killer, and knew Steve had a lot of money. And so I said, crazy story. You have to read it to believe it. And then we did a series of psychoactive mushroom conferences through the late 70s, into 2000. And I knew the merry pranksters, and I knew the psychedelic scientists. So I thought, why don't we bring them all together? So I knew both communities. And so we did the 1999 Brighton Bush Millennial Mushroom Conference. And there's Andy Weil there, Sasha Shulgin, a lot of top psychonauts, Christian Retsch, and a whole bunch of other, David Aurora, a whole bunch of people. We had 45 speakers and 60 paying participants. So I lost $50,000. I don't lose it. It was the best investment I ever made because I got all these people together. Then the psychoactivity conferences, in Europe occurred, and there's Sasha Shulgin there for those people. How many people here knew who Sasha Shulgin was? Created hundreds of new psychoactive molecules. Anyhow, a number of books then came out, and it's just 5 of my books there. But I love the book, The Golden Guide to Hallucinatory Plants. What every third grader needs to learn, You got minerals, you got birds, you got fish, and you got psychoactive plants. This is because a hippie inherited the Golden Guide fortune totally into psychedelics. He commissioned this, and of course the PTAs and everybody across the country up in arms. So it was a one-print edition. These are worth $500 a piece now. So then the Psilocybin Cubensis Scholarship Fund is what I call it. Then permeated throughout the universities and colleges all over the world, especially in California. And people would grow psilocybin mushrooms in jars on grain. People didn't get rich from this. They paid their tuition. They bought groceries, put the money back into the community. But it was very much a very, very common practice. I went on to discover 4 new psilocybin active species: Psilocybin azurescens, Psilocybin lentiformis, Psilocybin sonnifibulosa, and one I named after Dr. Andrew Weil. Now, to be very clear here, I've driven a line in the sand. Nature provides, I don't. Okay? The freedom of information protects books. It doesn't protect me from telling you how to grow psilocybin mushrooms verbally. So don't ask me for psilocybin mushrooms. Nature provides, I don't. But I have a passion for this. So this was in the vault. I pulled it out about 2 months ago. So this is kind of fun.
Greetings, and meet Psilocybin azurescens. Psilocybin azurescens is probably one of the most potent mushrooms in the world. It contains psilocybin and psilocin up to 2% of its dried mass. Now think of that. 2% of the dried mass of this mushroom are psychoactive crystals. Why would a mushroom produce so much? We don't know, but it certainly has attracted the interest of humans. The bluing that you see here is a bruising reaction. It's indicative of psilocin as it degrades. And the more bluing you see, the more psilocin there once was. Now, psilocybin dephosphorylates into psilocin, and when you ingest these mushrooms, psilocin becomes a serotonin agonist. It means that the psilocybin or the psilocin becomes a temporary neurotransmitter, opening up the floodgates of the senses. Now, this mushroom is sinuous. It's got a sinuous stem, which means it bends back and forth. It's bluing very, very strongly, and it has these very indicative spore color here on the annular zone. And the spore color is purple-brown, and the mushrooms are bluish. Those two features in combination pretty much de facto determines a psilocybe. Now look how bodacious the rhizomorphs are at the base of the stem. This is a large psilocybe, by far the largest one that I know that grows on wood chips in the Pacific Northwest. It is now a popular one to have in your backyard. It's just fun. It's just naturalized in the woods here. And this is a beautiful fruiting of them. And the psilocybes, many of the woodland psilocybes have this chestnut brown to caramel color. This one is unique in that it's got these umbos, and it's a broad umbo, and the cap is very circular. The bruising reactions just from impact of rain, perhaps. This mushroom is one of the most fascinating and interesting ones to grow. Those who choose to partake of this mushroom should be warned. These are exceptionally potent, and oftentimes they can cause temporary paralysis, loss of muscle control. So that is not a good thing. It seems that most people who boil this mushroom in hot water, those symptoms seem to be alleviated. But this is clearly a sacred species, and I love just personally touching it. This is not a mushroom that I enjoy eating. It's almost too potent for me. And but it is a species that I greatly admire. I love touching it. I love handling it. I love seeing it. And it's a great indicator of the habitat in my magical mushroom forest that is very conducive to spiritual experiences.
These mushrooms now have spread all over California, as many of you know. There's a strong association with internet companies, wood chips, and psilocybin mushrooms. Yeah. I wonder why. So Psilocybe beocissus is another species that's hidden in the landscape. I have another story about that I'll pass. But there are compounds, psilocybin and psilocin. Everything, the psilocybin degrades to psilocin. And there's serotonin, which is chemically in structure very, very similar. There's another compound called beocystin. Beocystin is not illegal. It also is pharmacologically active, and the methyl group there is easily cleaved by normal enzymes. That's a normal part. A lot of your digestive systems is cleaving off those methylated groups. So that's really interesting to me. So from those psychotherapists out there, I think the potential of using beocystin should be also examined. Psilocybe stuntzii, after Daniel Stuntz, alenii are two other species, the Psilocybe semilanciata and Psilocybe pelliculosa. Liberty crabs grow in grasslands, from Ireland down in the grasslands in Chile to, of course, Western North America, etc. So, and here is another little knowledge
Throughout
bomb.
the temperate regions of Europe and the Pacific Northwest, one of the most interesting psilocybes to collect is one that grows near ponds in the grass. And this field has not had cows on it for more than 10 years. So cows and sheep can help, but they're not necessary. And this is Psilocybe semilanciata, the famed Liberty cap. It's exquisite little fruiting here. It's got a translucent striate margin. You can see the striations. They're actually the gills showing through the cap. And the cap also has a separable gelatinous pellicle. So here is one over here we can look at. And as you tear the cap, there is a film that's clearly visible. And you can say, whoa, that's a really big one. And that film stretches and then breaks. So these mushrooms have purple-brown spores, a separable gelatinous pellicle, and they typically have a sharp umbo or nipple at the very, very top of the cap. And this papilla or nipple is not always in every specimen, but it's quite characteristic of the species in general. So Psilocybe semilanciata. Many people, when they pick semilanciata, they don't realize that the stem is so long. I think it's a mutualistic species with the rhizomes of grass, almost like a pseudo-mycorrhizal relationship, which means it's not obligatory, but it benefits from it. And the stems often are picked because people don't realize that the stem length goes way, way down. So be careful. Always try to get the base of the stem if you can.
Okay, so a number of clinical studies have come out. Many of you know about this. Johns Hopkins was really one of the first articles that came out, a pioneering article clinically showing mystical-like experiences had significance 14 months post-ingestion. relatively high dose of psilocybin, 30 milligrams. 70% of the individuals reported positive experiences. 30% reported negative experiences. But interestingly, the people who had negative experiences did not extend beyond the experience itself. The people who had positive experiences, 14 months later, talking to their family members, their associates, the family members, associates, and loved ones notice a significant change in the personality of the individuals, and they still, in remembering the experience, gave them further benefit. This is the extraordinary thing. With PTSD, you remember, the terrible thing that happened to you. You become re-traumatized. Well, this is the exact opposite of that. Remembering the positive experience of psilocybin had a demonstrable benefit. An extraordinary study. It's a survey with prisoners, 480,000 people surveyed by DSHS, and they found there was association, not causation, but it can be. But those people who had a psilocybin experience were associated with a 27% decrease of larceny and theft, 22% decreased odds for property crime, 18% decreased odds for violent crime. In a group of 1,266 community members, ages 16 to 70, there was this just recently came out, I think it was in 2018. Yep. This is really interesting. In couples, if the man had tripped on psilocybin, there was a statistically significant negative correlation with spousal abuse. Interestingly, it didn't cross-correlate with women. So men who tripped on mushrooms tend to be nicer to their spouses. I think that is extraordinarily interesting. Then the emotional responsiveness and depression, more articles, there are clinical studies coming out left and right. And Compass has just been approved in many countries, including the United States, as an emergency treatment for treatment-resistant depression. That just came out in the news last week. And a reset therapeutic mechanism is being proposed. The opportunity with therapy, this is important. This is where therapists really come in to play, because the benefits without therapy are less permanent, I guess is one way of saying it, than with therapy. When you have guided therapy with somebody who's experienced, they can help you rebuild your emotive response. I think as it assists in neurogenesis, you're repatterning, you're generating new neurons, you find alternative pathways to express yourself, and you build upon these through talking about them. So another article that came out here is 2017. And I think many of you know this. This is a great article. I love this article. 2018. Well, if you trip on mushrooms, you have increased nature relatedness and a decreased tendency toward authoritarian political views. Several people have recommended I run for president, and this will be my platform, right? You take psilocybin? Yes. Next question. I won't avoid any question. I'll wave my psychedelic flag, tall and high. So. Okay, so this is what I want your therapist to watch. Louis Schwartzberg and I are doing a movie together. We've been making it for 12 years called Fantastic Fungi. Louis, I acknowledge you and thank you for this clip. And thank you, Johns Hopkins Medical School, for allowing us to show you this clip of 2 patients. And this is really quite potent.
Anyone who's had one of those experiences in a country where it's not legal to have them is stuck in this position where something really precious and really giving a great gift to you is not understood by the culture at large, and furthermore puts you or other people at risk of prosecution. And one response to that is to get angry and to want to fight that. And another response to it is to say, we just got to explain to people what's going on here. And when people understand it, then there will be accommodation and respect.
I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. My diagnosis was so bad that it was, they weren't giving me any chance whatsoever.
My diagnosis was kidney cancer, finding out that you may want to get your affairs in order.
I first found out about the study when my oncologist gave me a pamphlet. He said, here's something that might be able to help you with the anxiety. And I was accepted into the study.
The most important thing is to remember that you're always safe. And a recommendation is that whatever is coming up, that you allow it, that you don't have to like it, but you say, okay, rather than trying to run away from it. Once a volunteer is enrolled in the study, they're with us for the preparation, the psilocybin sessions, and the integration follow-ups after. I have been a guide for around 350 psilocybin sessions, and then about 1,000 of the preparatory and integration meetings.
All right.
It's really just about experiencing what comes up as the psilocybin takes effect.
And the intense part of this journey, this world and things that matter to most people, family and all that wasn't even what it was about. They say anything mystical can't be explained. It's something like that. It's a feeling of such immense power that you can't even imagine. I've never felt anything like it before. It was about being in a place of infinite space and just being there.
There's an experience of positive mood, sometimes open-heartedness, love, transcendence of time and space, and then finally it's thought to be ineffable. People say, I can't describe that experience.
In my mind, I said, okay, hold it. If I give myself over to you, can you promise me that I will be in at least as strong a shape as when I entered this room? And I felt a voice that I needed to heed. Do you think I would disrespect my own handiwork? This is the voice from on high saying, do you think I would disrespect my child? And I felt so beautiful. I felt like I have never felt before. My sense of being loved, of being worthy, of love, of being cared for, of being important to someone. It's huge.
One-third of individuals in the study said it's the single most spiritually significant experience of their lives. About 70% say it's among the 5 most personally meaningful experiences of their lives. And you say, well, so what does that mean? You know, and initially I thought, I wonder if they don't have pretty dull lives. But no, people would say, you know, when my firstborn came into this world, I'll never forget that. And life has never been the same since. Or my father passed away. That was deeply moving to me. I'm different now in the world. And so, you know, it's kind of like that.
The most glorious part was that it made me feel more comfortable with living, you know, because you're not afraid of dying.
Frankly, I'm just a laboratory scientist. And I wasn't prepared for that.
From the memory of the transcendental state of consciousness
Many people report less anxiety, less depression, less preoccupation with pain, closer interpersonal relationships, and perhaps most impressive, they claim to have a loss of the fear of death.
It recalibrates how they see death. It's been amazing hearing them talk about this idea of love. Many of them spoke about how nature itself is something like a substance called love. And having touched that, they've recalibrated it and shaped how they die differently.
Okay, so those two patients have died now, but they greeted their death with optimism and hope and feeling oneness. And this is the big movement right now for the decriminalization of psilocybin in California and Oregon and elsewhere in the United States. And it comes down to this simple argument. You have a right to choose how you die. You want to die in fear and in anger and hopelessness and anguish and regret? Or do you want to die knowing that you're one with the universe? You're at peace. You understand the unanimity of being. That's a real choice. You have that choice with psilocybin. And so I think the end of death argument is the best one. We should allow this to be a personal choice for those people who want to do it. So many studies have come out for lack of time, but I'm going to jump into microdosing really quickly. Microdosing is taking a sub-threshold dose of psilocybin below that which you can feel. On the Psilocybin cubensis scale, like an elevator ride, I'd like 10 floors to an elevator or to a building. 0.5 gram is the first floor, 5 grams the hero's journey. That's the 10th floor. So you're taking about a quarter to a tenth of a gram to a 20th of a gram, somewhere in there. So a tenth or 20th of a gram of Psilocybin cubensis just below the threshold of having an effect. Really interestingly, I know all sorts of straight people, believe it or not, who would never consider tripping on psilocybin. But the concept of taking a microdose that could increase neurogenesis and fight depression and senility and dementia, well, that's a whole different subject. Plus, they want to feel cool with their grandkids, right? And yeah, microdosing. So anyhow, microdosing has swept Silicon Valley. I know several people who actually teach coders at the major Silicon Valley internet companies. All of you know the names of these companies. And the coders feel that it is giving them greater creativity. Amazingly, Roland Griffiths just published this 3 weeks ago. I thought they're going to go from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2. Schedule 1 means that a drug has no medical use and high potential for abuse. And Roland Griffiths and his team has written an article arguing it should be moved to Schedule 4. The least restrictive drug designation there is, similar to asthma medicine. So meetings have been happening with the FDA. I'm privy to some of the internal conversations. The FDA, when they were approached by a group of these scientists saying it's good for PTSD for the war veterans, the FDA interrupted them and said, no, this is good for PTSD on any level. They said they've never seen a drug so powerful with so much benefit with such low potential for abuse. Now, those of you who have not tripped on these mushrooms may not understand. This is not like marijuana or alcohol where you want to get high the next day or have another beer. After you trip on these mushrooms, the next day you look at them and you go, no way. Stay away. I'm done for a while. They have no potential for abuse, you know? Okay. So I'm going to show you something that is a little controversial. There are some therapists here, and there are some people who have DEA licenses. So I'm speaking to those people in particular, just so you don't get any ideas here. Psilocybin, cyanescence, and azurescence, they're really different. Azurescence is huge. So I've invented blue juice. You take ice cubes, you chop up a psilocybin mushroom. It's really counterintuitive for chemical extraction because typically you want hot, solvents for better extraction. Nope, not in this case. It took me forever to figure this out. You take ice cubes, you chop up the mushrooms, you put them in a refrigerator, and they slowly melt over 4 or 5 days. And they extract the psilocybin without the beta-glucans and all the other mushroom material. So then you can make ice cubes for Burning Man. Strictly for scientific research, okay? How many people have read Michael Pollan's book? Yeah. And, it's a great intro book for the psychedelically naive. A lot of us veterans, have some criticisms about it, but Michael's done a great job in making the bridge to a different audience of individuals who would not consider it because he has so much credibility. So I want to close in 5 minutes if I can here. There's another mushroom called lion's mane. This is legal. It's a potent nerve growth stimulant factors that are within it. It regenerates myelin on the axons of nerves. There's been 2 clinical studies on this. At a mild cognitive impairment, double-blind placebo-controlled clinical study, significant increase in cognitive function in tests from consuming these mushrooms for about 25 days on an order of about 4 to 6 grams of these mushrooms, once in the morning and once in the evening by capsules. It causes neurogenesis, and particularly it removes amyloid plaques. There's 2 really interesting studies with mice, where they inject mice with a toxic polypeptide that induces amyloid plaque formation. Amyloid plaque formation is associated with Alzheimer's patients upon resection after death. Amyloid plaque can be confirmed in degeneration of myelin, and the presence of amyloid plaque interferes with neurotransmission. The mice, when they were fed full-blown Alzheimer's-like symptoms with amyloid plaque, when they were fed the lion's mane mushrooms 3 to 4 weeks later, it resolved. Amyloid plaque had been largely removed. In demonstration of maze experiments, they then were able to navigate maze to near normal conditions, where prior to that, they were confused and unable to navigate. So there was both resection improving microscopically as well as behavior. This is a really important mushroom. I would ask all of you to consider taking this mushroom on a daily basis. We're all going to suffer some sort of types of neurological decline. And this is a fact of aging. And so lion's mane mushrooms can be found in the wild. They grow here in California. And then, unfortunately, the price of psilocybin is $7,000 per gram. So I had a dream. And I came up with a stacking formula, a epigenetic neurogenic formula, stacking psilocybin, lion's mane, and vitamin B3, nicotinic acid. So those of you who are older here may remember this. I'd like to have a show of hands. How many people remember in the 70s in particular that if you're tripping on LSD or psilocybin, if you took niacin, you could come down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people. It turned out not to be true, but that's the conventional wisdom. I've taken it, you've got niacin flush, it excites the endpoints of your nervous system. Well, neuropathy oftentimes is seen as the dieback of your nerves at your fingertips and your toes. So neuropathies oftentimes are presented that way. I thought if you stack it with niacin, you can excite the nerve endings. And we know that lion's mane regenerates myelin on the axons of nerves. And we know that psilocybin causes neurogenesis at the tips. Why not stack these together? So this, I think, I want to reinvent psilocybin as a vitamin. Taking it at sub-threshold doses below the levels of intoxication. The niacin also serves a purpose of like anti-abuse. The patients will not be able to abuse it. The adverse effects of a niacin flush, those who've taken a lot of niacin, you're itching, you're red, people will talk to you, what's wrong with you? It's a very, very negative reaction. So this is a way of stacking these together for epigenetic neurogenesis. And we lose body intellect of our culture with the aging population. We're losing Einsteins every day because of neurodegeneration. This is a loss to our cultural knowledge. And it's so important that we give the knowledge to the next generation to pass on. That next generation is going to become elders. So if you can stack these and increase your ability to increase your intelligence, I think this is really important. In the future. Okay, I'm going to, if anyone wants to leave the lunch, I'm going to try to stop by. I have to tell you this story. It's too freaking cool. I just heard this, and I was with some physicians, and this chef up in Vancouver told me this 3-4 days ago. I said, this is crazy. This is so fantastic. Now, any Canadians here may know this game, and people from Germany, but he was in the Yukon or up in that area, and there's a family reunion, 150 people, big bar scene, lots of music, people drinking, smoking. He doesn't do any of that stuff. And he was sitting at our table, and it was all guys, And they have this little game. And they put nails on a pine board, and they have a little tiny, the nail heads are this big, but the hammer is this big. It's a bar game. They play it all over the world now. I guess in Asia they do it too. And the idea is you put money on the table and you pound the nail down. So, I mean, he's never played this before. Everybody else is pretty intoxicated, but he goes in the bathroom and someone says, "Hey, you want some psilocybin?" He goes, "Oh, well, I heard about it. Sure." So he takes a dose of psilocybin and waits about 20, 30 minutes. He gets invited to this little game. He's not tripping. He's feeling it. Wow, this is really interesting. And he said he just got tunnel vision, just excluded all the noise. And all these macho Canadian, guys, and all trying to outperform each other. And they're going around. It's his turn. And he looks at it, tunnel vision, takes a hammer, boom, nailed it, literally, right down. They go to put $10 around. Bam! Does it again, 2 times in a row. 8 times in a row. Everybody at the table is freaking out. And then he said, "I had to do it." I go, "What?" He goes, "The guy that was freaking out the most," he looked at him in the eyes and went, bam! They lost it. Well, this makes sense. This is an example of a case. If you are throwing a spear against a saber-toothed tiger, the increase in agility, the increase in being able to perceive, to cognitively strategize against an opponent, an adversary, against climate change. I think that these compounds have enormous potential for increasing intelligence, acuity, and skills. Okay, now this is important for you to know, is the mice injected with low doses of psilocybin extinguish the conditioned fear response, not the high doses. High doses, no doubt, will do it, but clinically showing that the low doses had a better influence than the higher doses. This is also an argument for having a nootropic vitamin for treating depression long term. You have to be careful about deadly gallerinas. They're poisonous. They have rusty brown spores. I have 65 videos up on Instagram. I call them knowledge bombs. I drop them every few days. There's a bunch up there right now that you can go to my Instagram account and see these little knowledge bombs. They're 1 minute long talking about this mushroom. So I want to just close. I have 4 more slides here. This is Gymnopolis luteofolius. This is getting a little esoteric. This is an extremely rare psilocybin active mushroom. It does have rusty brown spores. That's why we don't advocate people look for it. But this is so crazy.
It only shows on boats.
Okay, this is July 8th, 2011. And it's just hard to believe that Paul Stamets' boat will be growing a psychoactive mushroom. But it's true. I know it's not the best specimen right now, but this is Gymnopolis luteofolius. It is unique to alder. It's a very rare species. In fact, most mycologists would not be able to identify it. I just happen to have a specialty in this area. And it's so weird because my friend Clay here, hey Clay, he said he found a mushroom going off of a boat and he brought it to me from your friend, right?
Yeah, Harstein Island boat launch.
And it was also Gymnopolis luteofolius. So it begs the question now, is this mushroom indigenous to Northwest boats? And I've never found this in the wild. I've seen it at a mycological society, but I go figure. Now, I'm not going to pick it, so I guess I'm not breaking the law. Or am I breaking the law because it's growing here and I know what it is? I don't know what to do. Anyhow, how bizarre. Gymnopolis luteofolius on Stamets' boat, and we've had more than one sighting of this on this boat and more than one boat now, 2 boats. So go figure. This may be why some of the European species came to the United States with pilgrims. Many of the ships that were brought over were then reconstructed into houses. So mycelial footprints, came across the ocean. It's very plausible. Okay, so weird science. This just came out about 2 months ago. And cicadas, 17 years in the ground, they come up. I grew up in Ohio. We had cicadas, I had several experiences with cicadas there. And they get these fuzzy butts. Well, the fuzzy butt, it actually decomposes their sexual organs. Their genitalia falls off, but they can still fly. And the males then will mimic female behavior to entice a male cicada to get close to it, because it was just discovered that fungus in his butt is packed full of psilocybin. Yeah, psychoactive cicadas. And those of you, when I was a kid, I saw these little fuzzy butts, but no one ever decided to analyze them. So they have this sort of mimicry of sex acts to entice, and the females then also do the same and back and forth to attract. So the spores will dust on the other cicadas, and then they go underground, and this fungus lives in subterraneously. But where is this going to stop, folks? So next cicada outburst, there's going to be all these psychonauts out there collecting them and making teas of cicadas. I don't know what's going to happen with this. So, all right, folks, I want to just close with this 1 2-minute little film here. Mushroom mycelium represents rebirth, rejuvenation, regeneration. Fungi generate soil that gives life. The task that we face today is to understand the language of nature. My mission is to discover the language of nature of the fungal networks that communicate with the ecosystem. And I believe nature is intelligent. The fact that we lack the language skills to communicate with nature does not impugn the concept that nature is intelligent. It speaks to our inadequacy for communication. If we don't get our act together and come in commonality and understanding with the organisms that sustain us today, not only will we destroy those organisms, but we will destroy ourselves. We need to have a paradigm shift in our consciousness. What will it take to achieve that? If I die trying, but I'm inadequate to the task to make a course change in the evolution of life on this planet, okay, I tried. The fact is, I tried. How many people are not trying? If you knew that every breath you took could save hundreds of lives into the future, had you walked down this path of knowledge, wouldn't you run down that path of knowledge as fast as you could? I believe nature is a force of good. Good is not only a concept, it is a spirit. And so hopefully the spirit of goodness will survive. Thank you very much, folks.
Come on, it's our private tech.
I never took more than 30% from any client.
This must be the place.